Listen to the sound of footsteps in the dark, to voices that may not be quite human, to the sound of screams in the night. The Haunted Cabaret, the home of all things horror, on Rhode with your host, George Garner. The Haunted Cabaret starts now.
That was Exhumed, Vacant Grave, one of my absolute favorite metal songs. And I'm sitting across, well, first of all, I'm George Garner, if introductions need to be made, sitting across the table from one of my favorite people, dare I say it, Chuckles the Clown.
Good evening, and I'll let the people part slide. I know we're all both a little...
You used to be a person. Before you died 4 times, you were a person. I don't even want to hear your nitpicking tonight.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not really sorry, but I am. So.
All right. Especially because now you've put me in the mind of comic books. You've put me in the mind of superheroes. We're going to actually start off this issue of the Haunted Cabaret discussing the new Spider-Man movie and the new Avengers movie. How does that suit you, Mr. Comics Crypt?
I mean, why not? I mean, Spider-Man has some really cool horror villains on there. Morbius, Blade.
All right, then after we discuss those 2 topics, then we're going to go to the subject. The overall subject tonight of the show is going to be nostalgia. Okay, are we going back to the future? As much as I try to avoid nostalgia, sometimes it's unavoidable. It's all around us.
Can we not go back to the future? I didn't like that movie.
We're not going anywhere near those movies.
Oh,
it was a figure of speech.
Thank you. I was just making sure.
Now, the only thing, when it comes to Michael J. Fox, the only thing I'll go back to is that movie where he was a cocaine addict and he had a bloody nose.
I will go back to The Frighteners, because that was good.
Okay. No, all right. But yes, we're not going back to that Back to the Future trilogy. Don't worry about it. No, what we're going to discuss, first of all, is this new Spider-Man movie, the latest one. And I don't know, where shall I start? First of all, did you like this movie before I start bitching? I'm always willing to give the other side a chance.
I have to be the devil's advocate and say, yes, I did.
Okay, now I could just say why. I mean, why do you like a movie where Electro looks like a friggin' emperor from Star Wars? Okay, Peter Parker in this version of Spider-Man looks more like he should be playing the Green Goblin. He's completely miscast as Spider-Man. And I'll stop right there. Those are two big problems right off the get-go.
See, I liked it because I'm not a big fan of the Spider-Man comics. Unless he's with the Monster Legion, I don't really pay attention to him. Or
Okay,
if
well
he's
that's
with
all right.
Blade
That's one.
or
Okay.
or Morbius. That's the only time when he's paired up with someone, I read it.
Right, but that's why you can be a lot more tolerant of the Spider-Man franchise on film.
So I went in saying this is pretty cool. And the other reason I liked it because those first 3 that came out, to me, were god-awful crap. Because they turned Spider-Man emo.
Well, that wasn't a completely good thing. But one of the again, it comes down to a difference of who liked and who doesn't like the original Spider-Man comic. You know, the traditional story of Spider-Man.
Right.
And Spider-Man was always a nerd. He was always a science geek. And he was always going through emotional crisis one after the other. So having Spider-Man somewhat emo, it's not exactly disloyal to the character.
I just didn't like the whiny part of him. I couldn't get past that. And the character playing him, I wanted to set up a giant mouse trap with a piece of cheese to take care of his whining. Let's just put it that way.
Okay, well, except that this new guy, he reminds me of. He talks like kind of has this little to his voice, which that irritates me as much as the other guy irritates you.
Okay, so you'll go by on that, and I'm also going to go by on the cartoon, which I really enjoyed, the 80s cartoon.
Right, the original, the one with the poor animation that looked really cool.
Right, and the kid sounds very similar to the voice actor that's from that cartoon, so I was able to grab onto it. And he's back to being a wise ass instead of being that whiny kid that was in the first 3.
Okay, the wise ass. All right, the wise ass. I'll go. I like that. Except he just seems to be combining the wise ass with the whining in this one. To me, you know who he reminded me of, and it's an impossibility unless maybe it's a father and son thing or a genetic clone situation. But you ever see the original Stephen King movie Christine?
I did.
I can't remember the actor's name, but he played Arnie, the guy that was possessed by Christine. And he talked like that kind of drooling, whiny thing. And then he was also in the Rodney Dangerfield movie Back to School. He played Rodney Dangerfield's son, and he was the same kind of that whining, drooly voice thing he had going. And I don't know, this Spider-Man just reminds me too much of that. There's some genetic connection. Maybe they'll bring it out. You
can't be the only one that's complaining because it didn't stay in the theater very long, and it did tank in the ratings. So,
okay, well, I hate to be in the majority of anything, but this time I don't. I think I'll be proud to. Yeah.
You definitely were, but I'm in the minority because I don't like going with the flow of things, and I'm going to say
that's my point. I don't either, but I'm not going to say I liked it just to say I liked it. To be in the minority. I can't do that.
The other thing I liked about that, Mr. Garner, is they took a jobber character like Elektra. He's a jobber. Let's face it. There's not too
Electro,
many.
by the way. Yeah, let's get our.
Sorry about that. I mean, there's not too many Spider-Man villains out there that are great besides Carnage and Venom. So they took this one guy that is normally a jobber, and they turned him into an impressive villain.
Mm-hmm. By the way, Elektra, the reason I was so fussy about that is Elektra is one of my favorite comic book females.
Which that movie sucked too.
We're not talking about the movie here. We're just talking about the character in the comics.
Yeah, that one was horrible. Marvel has definitely been striking out with a couple of these movies.
Yeah, I know. I think it's a poor choice of writers. And I think what happens is they have a formula. Now, granted, every superhero movie, every superhero comic, every superhero story has a formula, to a greater or lesser degree. But in these movies, they're following this formula to a ridiculous degree. In other words, every movie has to have 2 villains, as if one isn't good enough. Every movie has to have the superhero having some kind of problem with his girlfriend. I mean, especially the Spider-Man movies, but still, this is somewhat in all of them. The formula is so set now that, you know what the story is before it comes on. It's just a question of how the hero is going to stop the villain in the very last 5 minutes. That's the only thing there is to wonder about.
So I'm going to save your show here, Mr. Garner.
You're going to save it. I didn't know
I'm going to save it because we're talking about this horrible movie that no one likes, and they're starting to turn away from it.
Okay, let's talk about a movie that everybody liked, including us truly. The Avengers.
Really good movie, and you don't normally like CGI.
I don't, but I was willing. I was willing to let it go. I was willing to let it go because I enjoyed the characters so much and the story. And which brings us to the trailers. Obviously, I haven't seen the new movie's not out yet, but the trailers for the new Avengers. Now, let me preface this by Chuckles, you have your own objections to Ultron.
Yep.
Being the villain in this movie, and you'll get to those in a second. Before we get to those, let me just get to mine, which is very fundamental. Ultron is one of my favorite Marvel villains. Ultron is silver, and he has yellow-white glowing energy eyes. He glows with cosmic energy, which is bright, white, and yellow, with the heat of the energy. Why in this movie is this friggin' guy black and with red highlights?
I don't know.
I do. Here's my theory. Just because the Transformers think that all their villains, their evil robots, are dark colors, the Transformers have crept into the Avengers. Ultron is now black and glowing red.
Well, maybe they're trying to be politically correct with Ultron? I don't know.
I think they're trying to just... Evil robots ever since the Transformers are now dark colors.
It could be.
And that's the lack of imagination they're showing in this new Avengers movie, which means now I don't have much hope for it.
And everything that you just tied in there is tied into Disney having partnership with all three of these movies, so therefore Disney has the last call and probably says Ultron is red and black.
Yeah, in other words, bad guys are dark colors.
Yes, because if you look at a Disney movie, bad guys are always dark colors. That's the end story to that one. Now, what I don't like about this, and I'm an avid comic reader, and I've seen other stories. There are other stories that go off record with this. One of my favorite characters, which I haven't done a show about yet on Chuckle Script, and I will, is Ant-Man. They haven't introduced him yet. And he is a big part in building Ultron with Tony Stark. And they're giving the Iron Man character the full credit for this. So that, way to go on staying on board with the characters.
Right, and now you're a bigger fan of the Avengers comic than I am, so you're more knowledgeable about that. And you were telling me before we went on the air that Ant-Man was an original member of the Avengers.
He was one of the originals with his wife, Wasp, and he's not in it yet. And they're releasing an Ant-Man movie, but it's not Ant-Man, the original. It's a new guy, and they're not releasing it until like a couple months after the Avengers movie.
No, it's not going to tie into the Avengers universe, you're saying?
I don't think so. It's looking like it's not going to. It might. I might be wrong. I've been wrong before. I'll quote that. But it just, that frustrates me. And I was getting all geared up to seeing Thanos be the major villain. I don't know, they got me excited for some reason. I guess they were jumping ship too quickly with that. But that's what I'll go on record as saying. That's what makes me mad about this most. But I'm going to sit back and say it's probably going to be a good movie.
Okay. In other words, I'm going to have my complaints, but at the end, I'm still going to say I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Probably. As long as they have the same actors playing Thor and Captain America, Tony Stark. I mean, yeah, I admit it. I'll probably still enjoy it. But I'm going to grit my teeth every time Ultron is on the screen. No question about it.
Well, when he comes on, what I'll do is I'll put some glasses in front of you that are silver tinted. So he looks silver, and I'll put some little retinas in the center that glow.
Just whack me in the head with some kind of 2x4 or iron bar or something. I'll be seeing starbursts.
You got that. You heard that, Showcase Cinema. So when I whack him in the head with a 2x4, he told me I could do it. So
Security, do not drag this man out. Anything to prevent me from seeing Ultron in black and red.
There you go.
All right. Let's get back to the movie. We have been on the movies. Let's get back to the music for a second. How about Pentagram, Forever My Queen, here on the Haunted Cabaret.